What is up, YouTube? It's True Feldman here, coming at you with an Infernoids deck profile. I've been running the deck for a couple of months now, and I thought that with the new support that's coming out that I'd do an actual follow-up and put it on YouTube. So I guess we'll get started. I'm going to try and keep this quick, but I do run a couple of tech cards that I know a lot of other Inferno players don't run or don't know about, and they just recycle and provide additional resources to the Infernoids that I think is quite relevant through testing that I've done in the last couple of months. So anyway, I'll get started. First, run 2 Anonku. Too strong. I love his effects to block the field, but I rarely do it. I prefer him for his negating a spell and trap card over Divyadi's monster effect, but both are incredibly powerful. One Divyadi. The negate monster effects is so strong in some matchups, however it's not that strong in others, so I find the negating spell and traps is always relevant in whichever match you play in, so that's why I keep Anonku at 2 and Divyadi at 1. But now with the Void Imagination, this card has other utilities other than just cleaning the board with a heavy storm. So I run 3 Atondel. You have to. It's the other beat stick of the deck, attacks twice when it sends a monster to the graveyard, and it's just overall 2-8 attack is just devastating. The amount of damage you can do with this and Anonku is just, it's pretty much game from there. Run 3 Setesmus. The ability to banish a card at the end of the battle phase if this card attacks a monster is ridiculous. Like, you can go into the battle phase, declare an attack on a monster, they can Fiendish Chain you, and you can just like, fine, that's fine, do whatever else you can in the battle phase, then end it and activate his effect to banish a card in the field, which doesn't target, and then activate its second effect, which is to tribute itself, so now it's not on the field, not being negated by Fiendish Chain, and then you can banish a card on the field. So it is actually ridiculous, this card. It gets over so much. It's great for pendulum monsters. We run 3 Patrulia, Spell Destroyer. It can't attack after it activates its effect, but you can then go into ranks or synchros with Infernoid, Decatron, and also Raiden. This card is great. I actually prefer the little Infernoids compared to the big ones because they only require 1, and their effects are all responsive, so going second with this deck is just infinitely better because you can respond to your opponent's board state regardless of what it is, and you're not too interested, especially if you get a reasoning first hand. You can play it, you have resources, and you can, if you've got small Infernoids in your hand and you're milling the big ones, well, that's exactly what you want. So 3 of him. 2 Harmonic, actually, not 3, 2 Harmonic. I see a lot of people running 3. The popping a monster effect is actually, I don't find it that relevant. I mean, it's great in Shadows against Construct, but other than that, you're not going to get away with it on other boards, and you'd prefer Antro to bounce in almost every scenario with an extra deck monster. This thing is really only used for, say, BLS, Dark Arm Dragon, some of those, like, just monsters that you can get out that you main deck that are just problematic on the board. Otherwise, Antras I find infinitely better, but you run Harmonic, you need Harmonic. He's level 3, helps with Decatron. Like, every single Infernoid, you need at least 2 so that you can use with Decatron in case you mill it. Then the 3 Antra. I love Antra. Antra is like one of my favorite Infernoids. Just being able to bounce a face-up card your opponent controls is just devastating. It's great in the mirror. It's great against every basic matchup that you have that requires a cost or a tribute or something to summon. This thing just clears it. Shadows hate this card, as well as the fact that you can then, once you remove the construct from the field or the window or whatever, you can then tribute it off with a bigger Infernoid to get rid of their Shadow fusion so they can't recycle the card and just plus off it, which is the best part about this deck, is the ability to go into your opponent's graveyard and remove their targets. It's the best feeling ever. And last, 2 Prometheus. I love Prometheus. The ability to bounce, shuffle a set card back into the deck, and they can't respond to the activation of this effect is ridiculously good. If it starts a chain, if you can start a chain, you can then use the set card that this one will target, but if they've got one set card or a monster set and you activate this effect and they've got no back row, nothing to stop it, well, you're just bouncing that, you're shuffling that card back in the deck. This card is disgusting against shitholes. It's great if you can Book of Moon or Book of Eclipse your opponent's card and then use this card on it. It's got so much utility in the deck, and with Decatron, it's great to go first turn, summon Decatron, send this card, shuffle a set card, and then continue your plays with a reasoning or any other sort of summon that you're going to use to just power through your opponent on that turn. Very strong. I run 2 Decatron. I have a thing about running as little normal summon monsters as possible. I want my reasonings to go off. I want to send 20 cards on a reasoning. So I run 2 Decatrons and 1 Raiden. So I run 3 normal monsters, and then the other thing I do is I made an exception for Decatron because it's just so strong. But I normally only run 1 of every level. So for the 3 monsters that I will have, they'll each be different levels. So that way your opponent can't pick up on the patterns that you will send for reasoning, and so there's always a chance that you can get the monster, because milling them is great. And when you mill 20 cards, it's awesome, but sometimes you want that monster. I mean, sometimes you don't and you don't care, but there are times where you mill 5 cards and you want that monster, and if your opponent knows your pattern or the number of monsters that normal summon monsters that you have, they can call it, and you can end up going not enough plus in the turn to make it relevant, and then the Infernoids are going to be in a tough spot. 1 Raiden, great card, tuner, and mills 4 cards. It's exactly what you need. I've played with Card Trooper. Card Trooper's great too, but at the moment with Decatron now part of the deck, Raiden is now better than... Raiden is still playable, whereas I would take out the Card Trooper for a Decatron because Decatron is just infinitely better. Onto the spells. 1 Monster Gate and 3 Reasoning. These cards are just too strong now. Especially if you can open a Raiden or a Decatron in hand, you're milling 20 cards off those 2 monsters that are in your deck on average, so not guaranteed of course, but at some point you don't care and your opponent is just looking at you as you're milling your entire deck into the grave. And it's come up more than once where someone's come across and just going, why are you looking in your deck for? It's not, it's my grave. These cards just make the deck infinitely quicker and more powerful. Just a quick point on Monster Gate. With the new spell Void Imagination, this card is great for removing Tierra because Tierra is the worst. It's great to be able to send 6 Infernoids from your deck to the grave, but Infernoid Tierra being level 11 is stuck on your field and it has no effects to remove itself. So you have to find ways to get rid of Tierra, otherwise you're going to be stuck on a board state with just a single 3,400 monster attack monster that realistically is nowhere near as powerful as any of the Infernoids that you have that will be in your graveyard. So Monster Gate's great for getting rid of that. So if you can Void Imagination onto the field, Void Imagination, summon Tierra, then send with Monster Gate, you are in the best position for that game. You'll probably take it. I run 1 OVs, I run 1 Book of Eclipse, 1 Regeki, and 1 Dark Hole. Depending on the decks that I verse, I generally side out the Dark Hole, or the Regeki, sorry, because I find Book of Moon, Book of Eclipse is just too strong. To be able to set your opponent's cards is so strong, and even to set your own cards in this deck where levels matter, that you can't summon when you hit level 9 or higher and you can't do anything. When you play Book of Eclipse and you set everything face down, you literally have no levels on the field. You can summon out the Atondel, the Anonku, and you have the Divyadi on the field already. You then flip the Divyadi up after you've summoned the Atondel and the Anonku, and you have literally Spell, Trap, Negation, Monster Negation, and you can target a card in your graveyard and pop them. So that's why this card is just disgusting. This one just helps with OTK, same with this one. Run one 1-for-1. This is that one, of course, and it just summons Decatron straight from hand, discarding a monster, which you don't care generally because they're going to be Infernoids, and if they're the big ones, they can be summoned from the grave, so you don't care. This card's just summons a Decatron, sends another Infernoid, then you're already in the plus. Very strong. 1 Burial, because you banish, it brings them back. 2 Galaxy Cyclone. I'm still getting used to the new support that we've got, but something that's come up twice now is when you mill off a card and then you go Void Imagination, and you have Void Imagination in your hand and you're not using it so that you can summon a big board presence. If you've milled Galaxy Cyclone the turn before or whatever it is, you can then banish the Galaxy Cyclone to pop your Imagination after summoning 4 or 5 Infernoids, and you are literally attacking for game. There's nothing your opponent can do. So this card is now not only a target for your opponent's face-up like Vanities and other face-up cards, but it's also a great card to hit your own Imagination so that you can do the full battle damage rather than taking half damage. Or doing half damage, sorry. Then for the Void cards, these are my tech choices. Well, not Void Seer entirely, but Void Seer is at 2. This card is disgusting. In case you don't know, if you have it in hand, it is a make your Infernoid monster immune to, unaffected by everything, and when it's in the grave, it can be banished to negate the destruction of an Infernoid by a card effect. Next I run 1 Void Vanishment. I love Void Vanishment. This card is amazing. It's a search card for any Void spell and trap card. You discard 1 card from your hand. You cannot normal summon or special summon any non-Inferno monsters for the rest of the turn, which, if you play it right, you can summon all that stuff out first, then activate this effect, because it says until after this card has been activated. So you can search out your Void Seers if you need them. If you fear that your opponent has too much back row, you can use this card to search for your Void Imagination and then send in Infernoids to the grave. So now this card doesn't just add in the recycling effect, but it can also add in your send to the grave. So it's essentially a search for a reasoning if your opponent is playing Shadows and they've already summoned a Window or a Construct. So it's amazing. And it has a second effect. Like most of the Void spell cards, they have second effects. This one is during the battle phase of a battle between an Inferno monster and another monster, you can, during the damage step, you can send this card to the graveyard to banish the Infernoid and whatever it was battling. So regardless if you attack or they attack, you can banish that target, which I think is absolutely hilarious when your opponent declares an attack on Prometheus, which has 0 defense, and you activate this card effect and send it to the grave, and you banish their card, which you wouldn't have been able to get rid of otherwise. It's great, and they have no idea it's coming. The last spell is Void Imagination. So you take your opponent, while this card is face up, your opponent takes half the battle damage that that your Infernoid would deal normally. So it can slow your deck down a lot, and I forget about it so much that it halves the damage. But being able to summon 3 or 4 Infernoids if you've milled right is amazing. And then the added effect is if your opponent's summoned a monster from the extra deck, you can use this card to send monsters from your deck to your grave. Up to 6 to summon a Tierra is fantastic. The thing with Tierra is you got to remember them to be 6 different Infernoids, otherwise it doesn't stack its effects, but this card's great for that, and to be able to use your hand and field as well when you use the second effect, the second effect to summon Tierra is great. You can regularly summon Tierra as long as you have a Nonku and Divyadi in your hand, and they don't have an extra deck monster, but generally you're only using this card for the extra deck monster. Then for the traps, I run 3 traps. I run 1 Void Purification. This card is stupid now that Decatron is here. You can, on your opponent's standby phase, add an Infernoid from your graveyard to your hand. So essentially you summon Infernoid Decatron, you use this attack, use this effect to send another Infernoid, you attack for 500, it's not that much, but you're using its effect first. You tribute it off during your standby phase, send to the graveyard, then you activate this effect and you add the Decatron back to your hand. So you instantly have a normal summon you can use every single turn. And on your standby phase, on your own standby phase, you can add 1 banished or send 1 banished monster from your banished zone to your graveyard again. Which just gives you more room to just special summon. This card is stupid. If it's up for 2 or 3 turns, if you get Void Vanishment up, and Vanishment stays up for 2 turns, 3 turns, you'll have every single spell and trap in your deck that recycles. Your opponent is going to lose. they cannot keep up with the amount of recycling that this deck will do once that card's up. So that's Void Purification. I run one Void Launcher. I was originally running the spell card Void, just trying to think of the name, Void Expansion. But I was recently told that this card's better. Void Expansion I found to be quite good. It's this one here. You get a token on your standby phase, but I think Void Launcher has a little bit more strategy to it, in a sense, because you can, on your standby phase, you can send 2 Infernoids from your deck to your grave, up to 2 Infernoids from your deck to your grave. So you can pick the 2 specific Infernoids you want, or if you've only got 1 left, you can send the one last Infernoid. Generally, you don't send the little ones because you want the little ones to draw into the little ones, because they can only be summoned from your hand. You want to send the big ones. But this card is just great for thinning out your deck, getting the right Infernoids that you need. Sending a Nonku and Divyati is probably the main thing that this card would do, depending on what kind of opponent you're versing. If you're versing Shaddolls, you'd probably leave them in deck just so that you can get a Void Imagination, but otherwise if you're versing something like Klee or maybe even BA, you want to send this, you want to act, oh, BA not really, but if you can get a Divyati on the field against BA, they lose. This card's just good for sending the Inferno that you want, whereas this one is, on your standby phase, you get a token, your opponent cannot target your opponent can only target the highest level Infernoid on your side of the field, and you can use your field to as the summoning condition. So you can use your field as summoning condition. So if you have a Decatron on field and you've sent a card and you want to summon it, you can tribute or banish the Decatron to summon the card that you've sent to the grave if it's a Tondel or Setesmus. Or you can even use an Antra in hand and banish the Decatron on the field to summon the Antra. So this card can use your hands, and it uses the field more, whereas this one sends more. So it's a really tricky thing, and I'm at the moment going for Void Launcher, but we'll see how it goes. This card is still stupidly good, and I highly recommend it. If you're not using this one, you're using the Void Launcher, or vice versa. And the last card is Eye of the Void. I recently came into this card, or came into realization of what this card does. It gets around Iron Wall, and Imperial Iron Wall breaks this deck, and it was worse before when we didn't have Decatron. This card was the out to it before Decatron. I still run it because you are able with this card to summon an Anonku and a Divyati when you already have either a board presence of level 9 or higher. This card can just summon them. Their effects are negated to the end of the turn, but if you do it on the end phase, you can just draw your card and it instantly becomes a live card again. Or you can do it in the battle phase and just drop a 3000 attack monster or 2/8 or whatever monster you need to do the extra damage to win the game, or to do enough to put pressure on your opponent so that they can not activate effects or whatever it is that they're going to be doing. So this card is amazing. Cannot speak highly enough of it. It has gotten me out of so many issues with Iron Wall where I've had a Patrulia in hand and I just go, or a Setesmus in hand, and I just summon, no, not Setesmus, I've got a Patrulia in hand and just summon that, and then on the end phase so that it's safe, draw my card, activate its effect, targeting the Imperial Iron Wall, destroying it, and then summoning all my Infernoids back to the field and just beating my opponent. For the extra deck, moving on, I guess, I run 3 Tierra. Tierra is great. Like, you run it for imagination. Tierra is great because you can send Infernoids. Tierra is terrible because it's stuck on the field, and you yourself have to deal with this card. And it's not even an out to Towers, because Towers is going to drop it by 500, so to be at 2/9. So you can't even crash with Towers. If you have Void Seer in hand, then you can, but it's situational. So Tierra is interesting, powerful, strong, and great for sending Infernoids, but I can find many reasons as to why Tierra is very slow and stops you from playing a game. The reason why I run 3 is because you're going to get an imagination off once a game. Once a game. And the reason why you run 3 is because of one of its effects says that you can send 3 of cards from your extra deck to your grave. So you send the other 2 tiaras, because you're only on 1 imagination. So you send the other 2 tiaras so that you can use those tiaras as fodder for your other Infernoids. So that way you can go, okay, cool, I've got an Atondel engraved, and that's it. So I summon the tiara. Oh, you've used so many pluses. You can use the tiaras to banish to summon the Atondel when you don't have the tiaras left on the field, if that makes sense. Next I want one Gem Knight Pearl. Great card, love it. 2,600 attack for a vanilla. Isn't a level, so that's why you run it, so that you can keep summoning more Infernoids when you have it on the field. It's basically it and the other 2 vanillas are the reason why you can OTK with this deck. You summon a Tondel, summon this, and an Anonku. You basically have game right there. It's too much damage with a Tondel attacking twice. 1 Exiton, because you run Exiton and you need it. Pretty staple. The Castel. Castel is great. Bounces a face-up card. If you need to go into this to bounce an Iron Wall, then you do that to bounce an Iron Wall so that you can summon cards and summon an Anonku, so that way when they activate Iron Wall you can negate it and banish it. 1 Draco Sack. Summoning the Draco Sack and then activating its effect to summon the tokens. Tokens don't count to the level count, so you can summon the 2 tokens and blow up the field with Anonku, and you can keep the Draco Sack on the field. Alternatively, you can have Infernoids already on the field, and then you can, with the 2 Certesmas, summon this and summon tokens that you can use for fodder for. If you have the Divyadi on the field or an Anonku on the field, you can tribute the tokens, which is amazing because then you have essentially free fodder to negate and banish cards. 1 Big Eye. Big Eye's Big Eye. You steal a monster that your opponent controls. It's excellent. That being said, I have actually never made Big Eye. It's just there for the times that I could use it. That's the same for Castel and Exiton. I've actually never made them. It has never come up that I've ever needed these cards. However, they are there for the chance that I may need it. 1 Master of Blades. Same as Big Eye. I've never played it, but it's there for targeting cards. So basically BA. I am thinking of taking it out for the Red Eyes Flare Metal Dragon, but I'm unsure about it, and yeah, I haven't play tested it enough with it, the Flare Metal, but this card does its job fine if you ever needed it to do it. You generally don't need to go into this card, so. And then last rank is the Fairground. Great with Anonku. You summon 2 Atondels, summon this over the top, then special summon the Anonku to clear the board. Then you can activate Fairground's effect to send to detach and then make it unaffected by card effects, and then you essentially blow up the field, keeping your Fairground on the field and your Anonku, and just poking with those 2, which is devastating. For the Synchros, I run 1 Armades. Now that we got Decatron, we can actually go into lower Synchros without the use of Raiden. So Armades is great. Send Prometheus, shuffle a set card, summon a Harmadic, and pop a monster that attack for 2/3 that your opponent can't respond to. So excellent card. The 2 other that's not the vanilla. The 2 other vanillas. So you got the guy, the level 6, and this level 7 Scrap Dragon, Scrap Archfiend. Vanillas, huge attack, don't count to the level, easy to make OTK pushes. And then next I run 1 Ancient Sacred Wyvern. With Raiden and Harmadic, you can essentially do game with this 1 card. You summon a Tondel, you summon the Harmadic, you pop a monster, summon the Raiden, synchro into the mill 2, synchro into this, special summon the Tondel, and then you attack with the Tondel twice, or into the monster, then into the life points, so they take 2 8s. This card then becomes game. Too strong. And then last card is Clearwing Synchro. Great for Shadows. The construct is an absolute pain for this to deal with, but it is great if you can, on your turn, summon this card, attack the construct, tribute the Infernoid beforehand so that you can get rid of the Shadow Fusion so they don't plus, attack with this into a construct, and then the construct will essentially activate its effect. You can negate it with this effect. You get to attack again with an additional 2,800 attack onto this monster. So this thing is just devastating. Devastating. Great card. And that is it. That's all the extra cards I run. So that's my deck profile. I hope you guys liked it. Comment, like, and subscribe. I'll be putting up a couple more different videos from players that I've been videoing at my locals at Next Level Game in Dandenong, and there's been a couple of box tournaments that they've done, so I've got older videos that I'm going to put up for it, which some are from the new format still anyway, and some are from way before then, but I'll let you guys have a look at that, and yeah, catch you guys later.